just have to jump over a paper clip.
You can do it, Mike. We believe in you.
See this?
You can do it.
Okay, all you have to do is hold on to your toes.
Okay.
Okay.
This doesn't look good.
Okay. Okay, and I'll put the paper clip right in front of you.
Thank you.
You cannot let go of your toes, and all you have to do is jump over that. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I gotta get closer.
Okay, ready? Oh, he let go of his toes, but thank you. Here you go. Thanks for trying.
Everybody gets a trophy.
No, only those who allow themselves to be embarrassed. You tried, but you didn't go through with it. Okay, so that is just an object lesson. Physiologically, you cannot hold on to your toes and jump forward. It's impossible. And a lot of times, we think that if we bribe somebody or if we up the ante, that they'll go ahead and be able to do it. But sometimes it's just not possible, which is what it's like for someone who's had trauma in their childhood. And we say, well, if we would just motivate them more. Well, if we just do some different things, they would be better. If we just punish or give them consequences. But sometimes physiologically, it's just not possible. And we're going to learn about that today. So keep that in mind. I just want to let you know, we have a 5-year plan here at BESD to become trauma responsive. And what's important is us here in this room, some of us have had trauma in our childhood, which impacts our brain, which sometimes impacts how we act, which can impact how you act. And so my job really is to just teach everybody to be nice to everybody, because we don't know where everybody's come from. So I'm really lucky. So we're going to start off this year with learning about the power of one. The power of one being us, the power of one being, oh, isn't that so pretty? Okay, I set that up. I found out how to. It was way cool. Just the power of one. Next year, we're going to establish to prevent. We're going to establish healthy things for us, as well as establish rules and policy, maybe not policies, but procedures to follow to help keep those students who have behaviors on a positive learning path. We're going to build to empower from that on our 3rd year. Our 4th year, we're going to review, reteach, and renew. And then we're going to bring it back to the power of one and that responsiveness that needs to happen. So that's just our 5-year plan in the schools. And just wanted you guys to be aware, because some of you are out in the schools and some of you deal with parents who are coming in talking about their students. So we all are impacted by this. So what I need to decide is whether to show you guys the funny videos, because I don't want to keep you long, but I am going to show you this one because it's fun. Okay, so why should ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences, have impact on you? Why should it matter to you that you know about this? Well, first of all, because it's important that we learn that we need to self-care, or we will become that trigger for someone else, right? We need to learn to take care of ourselves so we can be in a good place to take care of someone else that we come across, or to just manage our own trauma. If we don't, we might deal with something called ratio strain. So we all have stress. Who in here gets stressed? It's Monday morning. I'm stressed. I have a whole week ahead of me of work. Actually, I really love my job, so I'm not stressed. But we do all experience stress at some time. And stress is good, right? Stress helps us to be safe sometimes, or to prepare for the PowerPoint you have to give, or the paperwork you have to turn in, or whatever it is you need to do. But ratio strain is something that some of us in this culture feel like is necessary, right? It's, man, every weekend I'm here all weekend, and I come and I don't go home till 9 o'clock at night, and we're proud of it. And it's so bad for your health and your mental well-being. And so we don't want to go there, because when we go there, bad things happen. So ratio strain is the point of too much energy expended in exchange for too little in return. It is the point of, if things don't get much better, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. I've already heard some teachers say that to me. And it's like, whoa, we're barely into school and you're already feeling that way, you know they're out of balance a little bit. Too much focus on something and not enough on something else. So this is what sometimes happens.
I said, as long as I was escaping, would I mind escaping to the market and picking up something for dinner? Sure, that was all I needed. A busy supermarket. I needed to drive, mellow out, get my mind off the wedding. But mellowing out was not in the cards.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. What are you doing?
I'll tell you what I'm doing. I want to buy 8 hot dogs and 8 hot dog buns to go with them. But no one sells 8 hot dog buns. They only sell 12 hot dog buns. So I end up paying for 4 buns I don't need. So I am removing the superfluous buns.
I'm sorry, sir, but you're gonna have to pay for all 12 buns. They're not marked individually.
Yeah. You want to know why? Because some big shot over at the Wiener Company got together with some big shot over at the Bun Company and decided to rip off the American public. Because they think the American public is a bunch of trusting nitwits who'll pay for things they don't need rather than make a stink. Well, they're not ripping off this nitwit anymore because I'm not paying for one more thing I don't need. George Banks is saying no.
Who's George Banks?
Me!
Why don't we just calm down now, sir?
I'll tell you why we don't calm down. Because you're not excited. It takes 2 people for a we to calm down, doesn't it?
That I don't know, sir. I'm just the assistant manager of a supermarket. But I'll tell you this. If you don't pipe down and pay for those buns, I'm going to call the police.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, right.
That's right. Hey,
Right.
hey, hey, come here. Come here. Come here.
That was the low point.
So we can act really bizarre, right? Have you ever experienced racial strain where you just find yourself saying or doing something where you just wish you could take it back, but you're living in your amygdala, so it just doesn't work? I love that video. It's a fun one. Okay, so talking about ACEs. ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. This is going to introduce you to it. It's a little 5-minute clip that's going to introduce you to what ACEs are. This movie was made. It's called Resilience, the Biology of Stress and the Science of Hope, for many reasons. First part of this presentation, we're talking about the negative effects of trauma. The second part, we're going to talk about what we can do to counteract those effects in our lives and in the lives of others. So we will be taking the ACEs quiz after we watch this. I just want you guys to know that some of you who have experienced trauma in your childhood or in your adult lives, these might trigger you to some anxiety. The first time I saw it, I didn't think I'd be triggered. And trigger is a very accurate description of what happens. But you don't have to take the test. And if you need to get up and walk out, please get up and walk out. We want you to feel mentally okay. If you need to, take a few deep breaths. Because you never know what's going to happen, right? And those of you who have not had trauma before would have no idea what I'm saying. But those of you who have had trauma will know what I mean when you start to feel that pressure. Anyway, so we're going to watch this and then we'll take it. If you don't want to take it, remember you don't have to, okay?
What does your parents' divorce have to do with your risk for heart disease? If your mother had a drinking problem when you were growing up, are you more likely to suffer from depression as an adult? Here's what you should know about ACEs. ACEs stand for Adverse Childhood Experiences, extremely stressful events that can happen to a child growing up. Some experiences are so stressful that they can alter brain development, as well as the immune system, increasing the risk of lifelong health and social problems in adulthood. The term comes from the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, landmark research that shed new light on the root cause of everything from stroke and liver disease to substance abuse and mental illness. In the late 1990s, an epidemiologist from the Centers for Disease Control and a preventive medicine doctor at Kaiser Permanente set out to understand the association between childhood experience and lifelong health. They asked over 17,000 people in the Kaiser Health Plan in San Diego about their health history, as well as difficult questions about their experiences growing up. Anda and Felitti tallied up 10 different kinds of adversity in this largely middle-class and college-educated population. They were stunned to see how common ACEs were. 21% of all respondents were sexually abused as children. 19% grew up with someone who suffered mental illness. 28% had been physically abused. And 2 out of 3 respondents had experienced at least one ACE. The researchers next looked at how someone's ACE score, or the number of adversities they experienced, related to a wide array of serious health and social problems. They saw that the more ACEs someone had, the greater their risk for poor outcomes compared with someone with no ACEs. Someone with an ACE score of 4 had twice the risk of heart disease and cancer. Someone with an ACE score of 5 had an 8 times greater chance of being an alcoholic. And those with an ACE score of 6 or more, on average, died 20 years earlier. With every major problem they looked at in the ACE study, the risk went up for each additional adverse experience in childhood. As Dr. Robert Anda says, what's predictable is preventable. It's important to remember that ACEs are not destiny. ACEs are a tool for understanding the health of a population as a whole. For individuals, an ACE score can be a tool for understanding their own risk for health and social problems, and empower them to make changes for themselves and their children. ACEs tend to get passed down from generation to generation and are common across all income levels, races, and cultures. But increasingly, people of all different professions and backgrounds are coming together to discuss how ACEs affect their communities. They're finding new ways to treat and prevent ACEs. Many doctors are starting to screen their patients for ACEs as part of their medical history. More schools are becoming trauma-informed, considering the source of problem behavior when disciplining their students, instead of immediately suspending or expelling them. To learn more about interrupting the cycle of adversity and improving health and well-being for the next generation, please visit kpjrfilms.co.
All righty. So, as he said, this study was given to basically most of the people were college-educated, middle-class people like us in this room, right? We've been educated, we have good jobs, most of us are middle class. So this is the questionnaire that they finally came up with. So let's, if you want to, this is what I need you to do. I just need to know a number. You don't have to mark which ones. Don't put your name on it. If you don't want to take it, don't take it. Just rip this off and write a number at the bottom of how many adverse childhood experiences you had according to this. Okay, it'll be 0 through 8, 0 through 10. Yeah, if somebody could just bring them up here when you're done, I'll start this next little video because I know you guys have good work you need to get to. So, Dr. Harris, Brooke Harris, she is a doctor in California. She found this ACEs study, and she started to put 2 and 2 together and started to use in her clinic the ACEs study to help her determine health problems in children. So she looked at the whole child. And some fascinating things came from her implementation of this. So that's what this is about. There's a little guy who is having trouble in school, and the mom is desperate and brought him to her.
He is hitting the kid next to him. He can't pay attention. He's running out of class. Please, Dr. Burke, he's got ADHD. Can you please put him on some Ritalin? And when I did a thorough history and physical, which is my job, it turned out that I couldn't make a diagnosis of ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because a lot of the kids I was seeing had so many traumatic experiences in their life. Okay. Now, if you take a kid who's been exposed to trauma, they also will have difficulty with impulse control, difficulty with regulating their behavior. The big difference is if you give a child with an overactive stress response a stimulant, what do you think is going to happen? It's not going to help.
Feeling like
and so I think people were seeing the behavior,
but we're not getting to the root of what is causing the behavior.
But there's actually something functionally changing in their brain, and it's interesting how much activity overall they have when processing all types of emotions: happy, sad, fearful, angry. We tend to divide the world of mental health separate from the world of physical health, but the body doesn't do that. The body's only one.
Stressful or traumatic things can affect the health of kids. And so one of the things that we do here is that we screen all of our patients for what we call adverse childhood experiences, or these kind of stressful experiences in childhood. We don't need to know which ones, we only need to know how many.
it's intense, and getting folks to open up and all that stuff is very difficult. But here's the thing about it.
That may have occurred in your family.
We found that for kids at the Bayview Child Health Center, if they had an ACEs score of 4 or more, they were 32 times as likely to have learning and behavior problems in school. 32 times as likely, right? Than if you had an ACEs score of 0.
The reality is that we all need a certain amount of stress, a certain amount of anxiety to perform well. If we don't care about that exam that we're gonna have tomorrow, we'll probably fail. If we're gonna cross the street and a truck is coming at us, we have release of adrenaline. We have release of a hormone that we call cortisol. We wanna jump out of there, and adrenaline and cortisol are gonna help us do that. So there's that good amount of stress. But if all day long you're feeling like a truck is coming at you, day after day after day, that's gonna take a toll on the body. And the amygdala obviously here has greater activation in the PTSD. We were able to image children that had experienced trauma and compare those brain images with children that didn't have an experience of trauma, didn't have symptoms.
Right, an exaggerated fear response.
An exaggerated fear response with decreased activation in areas that we need to control that emotion, in the frontal areas.
Exposure to early adversity and trauma literally affects the structure and function of children's developing brains. So the kid next to them hits them, or the teacher reprimands them in a way that they're uncomfortable with, right? literally what they're feeling, that activation, is like there was a truck coming at them. You can give something that will mask symptoms, right? For example, if someone has a cough, right, you can give them a really strong cough serum that will suppress their cough. But if it's because they have tuberculosis or lung cancer, then what you're doing is merely masking the symptoms while the disease process continues to fester. We know what's happening in children's brains and bodies with the experience of toxic stress. So the question now is, what do we do about it?
So that is the question. What do we do about it? And that's why we're here, because the brain scans you saw, they've shown that trauma changes your brain. It makes you have an exaggerated fear response. I know what I have an ACE score of 4. I know what my fear response is. I usually, and I freeze, or I'll fight with great emotion, right? I try and not justify, but I try and make others understand where I'm coming from, because I just want somebody to listen, right? And so if you ever see that, just give me a hug. But no, I know what to do about it. And one of the things I know how to do is to breathe. So we're going to take a minute and breathe, because I think this is a really important skill for all of us to learn. Mindfulness is huge nowadays. Do you know why? Because if you live in the present and focus on things, you can control your body's reactions. You can control your anger. You can control. It's real. It happens. It's proven. So we're all going to breathe. I'm going to walk you through it. We're going to go count to 10 2 times. When I say 1, you're going to breathe in. And when I say 2, you'll breathe out. Try to just focus on your breath. Do you feel it in your nose when you breathe in? Do you feel it in your lungs? Do you feel it in your stomach? Where do you feel that breath, and how does it feel? Is it cool? Is it warm? Same when you blow it out through your mouth. Where do you feel it? Is it expelling from your stomach, your lungs? Focus on your breath. I promise your mind will start to wander. As soon as it does, all I want you to do is note, is that a thought or a feeling? And then label it. So you're breathing and you think, oh, I forgot to put, Downy on my grocery list. Then say thought. Or if you think, this is really stupid, I'm kind of feeling anxious. Feeling. Just thought or feeling. That's all you're going to do is label it and go right back to how your breath is feeling. All right? We're going to try it. Okay. Ready? Breathe in 1. Breathe out 2. Breathe in 3. Breathe out 4. Breathe in 5. Breathe out 6. Breathe in 7. Breathe out 8. Breathe in 9. Breathe out 10. Do you guys do okay? We're going to do it one more time. You can close your eyes. Try harder this time to focus on your breath, but note. Breathe in 1. Breathe out 2. Breathe in 3. Breathe out 4. Breathe in 5. Breathe out 6. Breathe in 7. Breathe out 8. Breathe in 9. Breathe out 10. All right. That's what mindfulness and meditation is. That's what people are trying to get us to do nowadays, and it's because it works. It's what we want to teach our kids to do. It's what we want to do. I'm just going to add this up since I got an extra one. And we're going to see what our scores were. Okay. So, are you guys all interested? Say yes. Yes. Good job. Thank you. Thank you for following directions. So I'm going to put this as DO. This is us. Okay. We had 39% that have never had an adverse childhood experience from 0 to 18. That's excellent. It's a little bit more than the ACE study of 33%. ACE score of 1 was 20% of us, a little bit less. ACE score of 2 was 5%. Much lower than the study. 3 or more was also 5%, also low. This was much higher, 22%. So in this room are people who have an exaggerated fear response. We don't know who they are, so we're going to treat everybody nicely, right? Because we don't want to be the ones that is the cause of somebody having a really hard struggle. What does being nice look like? Well, it looks like human connection. That's what it looks like. Human connection is one of the most powerful tools that we have to counteract the effects of resilience. I'm not going to show you the video that talks about this because I'm just going to tell you about it and it'll take a little bit less time. There is something called toxic stress that some of our kids have and that some of us had when we were young, and that is you feel like the truck's coming at you all the time, like in that cartoon, when you're a child, and this develops this even a bigger exaggerated fear response. Human connection, on the other hand, develops something called oxytocin. You don't have to go rob a pharmacy to get this. It's inside. Oxytocin is created when there is a trusting human connection. Okay? That counteracts the effect of cortisol and of that trauma. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm resilient, because guess what? I had some trusting, caring relationships that developed that helped me manage my stress, helped me manage some of those ACEs. So it's really important to recognize that we need to have a human connection. Turnaround is the place, so there's ACEs, and then turnaround is a bunch of videos, and it talks about the human brain and living in your amygdala, fight, flight, or freeze, and how human connection can help. So like if Lisa comes into my office as a student, if I'm a teacher, or as an adult, and she comes in and she's amped up, right? What I can do, instead of being defensive or saying, I can't believe she did that, or why don't they just think straight, I can say, I can see you're having a really tough time. Do you want to go grab a Coke and we'll just like talk? Instead of addressing the problem, you're connecting. Sometimes we forget to connect when we work because we're so busy with work, and it's about connecting. So I'm going to end with, okay, I spent a lot of time on the ACEs and not a lot of time on the cortisol, on the oxytocin, but you guys just be nice.
Okay, that's done.
Okay. They're paying me just to go around and tell people be nice. This is a story of Josh Shipp. We got to go, Keith, see Josh Shipp in person. And he gave a presentation that was beautiful. This is a little 5-minute video of Josh Shipp. He was abandoned when he was 3 hours old. He was in and out of foster homes forever. In fact, he liked it, and he kept a little notebook. That's not in the video, but he kept a little notebook saying what he did to get out, to get kicked out, and how long he lasted. And so that was the only control he had in his life.
I was trying to break the record, so he
Yeah.
less and less time with the family to get kicked out.
It's because that's the only control he had. And sometimes we see these little kiddos, right, in our schools, and the only control they have is to make their teacher crazy So the teacher will kick them out, or the principal will kick them out. That's the only control they have. So yeah, are they doing things on purpose to make you crazy? Well, yeah, because sometimes they don't have that human connection. So this video is about human connection. In it, he talks about suicide. And so I want to address that right now and say that not everybody who commits suicide is lacking human connection. There are so many things that go into suicide, and we've had a lot of suicides here. We've had a lot of people who've attempted suicide. Not in here, but in our lives, we might know people who have attempted. That doesn't mean we weren't there for them, okay? This is his story from where he's coming from. Suicide is its own little thing, but human connection can help build those relationships that may stave it off. But then again, it may not. It just depends on what's going on. So I have to address that because I've shown this before and I've had somebody say, but why wasn't I enough? And that's not how it works. It's just not. There's too many things going on in the brain. And we take a lot on ourselves and it's painful. But in this case, this helped him, and we can be this person for someone. So when we see somebody having a hard time, we go, because it sucks to be trapped in that. You need a human connection.
I tried to kill myself with a bottle of pills. And the fact of the matter is I trusted no one. And looking back, I guess how could I? From the time my parents left me, to the time another foster kid raped me, to the time I was bullied so bad, I genuinely could not fathom a world where I could trust anybody. So fast forward, here I am, 14 years old, and entering my umpteenth foster home. I was a veteran at this whole sort of getting kicked out of one home, moved to the next. You meet these people who were like literally complete and total strangers 10 minutes ago, who are now apparently your mom and dad. You know, kids don't take candy from strangers, just move in with them. So I'm sitting in the van, in the driveway of this next home, and that's when I see Rodney. He's standing up there on the front porch, and immediately I notice, this is a large fella. He's 6'5", he's 350 pounds, and as a 14-year-old boy, I couldn't help but notice, when he's turned to the side like that, he's shaped like a lowercase b. It's amusing now, but in the moment it was tactical. Maybe that's how I could get kicked out of this home. Maybe I could get under his skin about his weight. So I move in with him. I'm being obnoxious, I'm being ungrateful, I'm being just downright rude and mean, I'm setting things on fire, and 3 years later, I can't shake this guy. Rodney won't kick me out. So I step up my game. I go to the local bank in town. I open up a checking account. I put about $90 in there. Then I proceed to write $10,000 worth of checks. Obviously, checks bouncing one after the next after the next. One check that bounced was for my car insurance. I'm going down the road speeding, Stillwater, Oklahoma, 88 miles an hour. No car insurance, no driver's license. I get pulled over, handcuffed, thrown in the back of a cop car, and sent to jail. I call Rodney. Like, Rodney, I'm in Stillwater, I'm in jail, I'll tell you the whole thing when you get here. Can you please come bail me out tonight? He said, I will come bail you out, but not till tomorrow. Rodney frustratingly believed sometimes one of the most loving things you could do for a kid was allow them to sit in either the success of their wonderful choice or the stupidity of their foolish choice. Next morning, he comes, bails me out, exactly as promised. We have a long, very awkward car ride home. No one says anything. We get back to the house. He's like, we need to sit down and talk. And I knew this moment had finally come. So Rodney, his wife, sit me down to give me the talk I've had a dozen times. He looks in my eyes and says, son, you can keep causing problems. You can keep trying to mess up. You can keep pushing us away. You can keep trying to get us to kick you out of here, but you've got to get it through your thick head, son. we don't see you as a problem. We see you as an opportunity. And in that moment, all my skepticism came to the surface. And I thought, what a cheesy, stupid thing to say to a 17-year-old kid. But then I was overwhelmed with the reality that this guy actually meant it. He didn't see what I was, what was on the surface, the obnoxious kid, the ungrateful kid, the kid getting suspended. He saw what I could be. It was genuinely my turning point. Statistically, I am supposed to be dead, in jail, or homeless, but because of one caring adult. I'm not a statistic. Every kid is one caring adult away from being a success story. Every child who winds up doing well has had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. So, in a nutshell, it's our human connections. People may irritate us. Kids, we may be scratching our heads, and it may be years. But what really matters is that connection with your children, with your spouse, with your coworkers. See them as human beings, not as somebody who has to do a job, right? Because we live in this world, and we want to have happiness in this world. And there's so much heartache out there. So let's just love each other, you know, appropriately in a school setting according to the rules and bylaws of the... Humor is one of my number one thing. I'm so sorry. When I get, like, you know, uncomfortable with my emotions, I turn to humor, and yeah. All right, there you go. Feeling too much. Anyway, does anyone have any questions? You've all now been informed. Are you going to become sensitive? Is it going to become part of you? Are you going to treat each other differently? Are you going to see people differently? Sometime in the future, I'll show you, or you can look it up. Oprah watched this whole movie. We just saw part of it thanks to Brigham City Hospital, who bought this for us, the rights. Oprah, who has ACEs scores out the yin-yang, saw this, and her response was, on a national news thing that she did, I see everybody different. When somebody is messing up at work, I don't say, what's wrong? Or I don't say, you know, you need to do this right or fix it. I think, what happened to them to cause them to have this reaction? How can I help them? Can you see how that would be just a great work environment? Luckily, I feel like I'm in a great work environment. I know I had some anxiety, went into Keith about a situation with a little kiddo and was so concerned about what could happen, and it was stemmed from my own trauma. And he just handled it so calmly. I felt very listened to. I felt like he was concerned about me, but was able to be objective about the things that were going on. We have it here, so let's use it. No questions? Brain. Oxytocin Monday.